Hi folks, welcome to Creepy Puppets Presents. I've mentioned in a previous video that I call myself a spiritualist. Spiritualism, as I use the term, is descriptive. Spiritualism describes the belief that minds exist independently from matter as we presently understand it, what I call spirits, and that these spirits can interact with us. Some people, whom we call mediums, either through training or innate ability, have a heightened ability to communicate with spirits. Spiritualism is probably as old as humanity itself. Every civilization that has ever existed has believed in spirits, and pretty much all of them describe benevolent inhuman spirits, malevolent inhuman spirits, and the spirit of the human dead. In Western parlance, angels, demons, and ghosts. Spiritualism is some part of every religion, but today it's most prominent in animist religions like Shinto or Afro-Caribbean religions like Voodoo and Santeria. Organized spiritualist movements in the modern West began, arguably, with Emanuel Swedenborg. Swedenborg was a Swedish scientist working in the first half of the 18th century. In 1741, Swedenborg claimed to have been visited by angels who, like Virgil in Dante's Commedia, took Swedenborg on a tour of heaven and hell. This experience changed Swedenborg, who, though still a committed Lutheran, became a prodigious author of theology that differed in many ways from Orthodox Lutheranism. Swedenborg would claim to be continuously visited by angels for the rest of his life. Though he never intended to start a church, several Swedenborgian churches have been formed, including the New Church, based in Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania. Though small, the New Church has had several famous members, including Helen Keller and the historical Johnny Appleseed, who was himself a New Church missionary. The New Church founded Bryn Athyn College and Seminary, and Swedenborg's ideas have been very influential on Mormonism. The Swedenborgians don't practice spirit contact as a matter of their faith. The idea of active angelic communication, specifically the idea that the spirits of the dead continue to develop spiritually after death, heavily influenced anglo-spiritualism. And when most people think of spiritualism, they think of the anglo-spiritualist movement that began with the Fox sisters in the 1840s. Though the sisters' public displays of spirit communication were later revealed to be a hoax, the movement was out of the bag, and the movement contained some rather famous names, including the author of Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, and the co-discoverer of evolution, Alfred Russel Wallace. The earliest converts to Anglo-spiritualism were Quakers and Unitarian Congregationalists, and both of those denominations left their mark on the movement, especially on the organization of spiritualist churches. Unitarianism, the position that there is only one God and Jesus was just a human, albeit one with possible supernatural powers and possible pre-existence, affects the theology of the National Spiritualist Association of Churches and their statements of principles found here. Understandably, spiritualism exploded in the aftermath of the tragedy that was the First World War. The Anglo-spiritualist movement, best known in the English-speaking world, was not the only spiritualist movement at that time. Spiritism, based on the writings of French medium Allan Kardec, became popular in the Latinate world, while the Cao Dai movement became popular in Vietnam. Perhaps the most interesting variant of spiritualism as a movement is Theosophy. Well-traveled, well-educated Russian noblewoman, Elena Petrovna Blavatskaya, usually anglicized as H.P. Blavatsky, became active in the spiritualist movements in the United States as a medium. Madame Blavatsky is probably the source of every stereotype about mediums you can think of. Blavatsky was more interested in philosophy than most in the Anglo-spiritualist movement, and she was especially interested in Buddhist philosophy. When Blavatsky met Union Civil War Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, who had a similar interest in Buddhist philosophy, the two founded the Theosophical Society together. Theosophy is a spiritualist movement rooted in idealistic philosophy, especially Platonism, and very strongly based in Mahayana Buddhism. One of the founders of the Theosophical Society was an Anglican priest named Charles Webster Leadbetter. Leadbetter was frustrated that the Anglican Church was hostile to the study of spiritualism, So he and some other Anglican and Catholic spiritualists received ordination into the Old Catholic Church, an independent Catholic church, and founded the branch of independent Catholic churches known collectively as the liberal Catholic churches, which prioritize intellectual freedom. I should say something about independent Catholic churches here. These are autocephalous churches headed by lines of bishops that used to be part of the Roman Catholic Church before becoming independent. Old Catholics generally subscribe to Orthodox Catholic theology but reject papal infallibility. And while most liberal Catholic churches are not spiritualist, some still are. The third major branch of the independent Catholic movement are the Sedevacantists, who believe the Second Vatican Council was heresy and all the popes who endorse Vatican II are not valid popes, so the throne of Peter is vacant, hence sede vacante, the seat is empty. Sedevacantists tend to be Catholic fundamentalists. Mel Gibson is a Sedevacantist. Finally, Christian Science is expressly not spiritualist, and its founder, Mary Baker Eddy, condemned the practice later in life. But there is a certain level of similarity between Christian Science and anglo-spiritualism. Both have a focus on spiritual healing, both have practitioners who operate independently of the church, and both have reading rooms, what anglo-spiritualists call lyceums, and both are Unitarian. The reason for this, though Christian Science vigorously denies it, is that Christian Science came out of the New Thought movement, which itself came out of the Unitarian Congregationalist Church around the same time as the Anglo-Spiritualists. And other New Thought churches have a more positive view of spiritualism. Mary Baker Eddy has been quite influential on my own religious thinking, and one day I'll go into her ideas more in depth. Going forward in this series, I want to defend the descriptive definition of spiritualism rather than any particular movement or institution. And I felt that going through the history of the organized movements would provide some important context. Now, I'm doing this mostly because I have yet to see a serious defense of spiritualist ideas, and I thought it would be important to put forward such a rigorous defense. So in the next episode of Spiritualist Apologetics, we'll get into actively providing rational arguments for the spiritualist position. Thanks, and take care, everybody.